When we started the process to adopt from Africa, the one thing I said over and over was that I would not adopt from Uganda. When we had adopted our daughters, then ages 21 months and 3 years old, the previous year, it had been a long, complicated process. I did not want to go through another stressful adoption. We knew that Uganda had a questionable reputation, so we sent out all of our paperwork to everywhere else, but not Uganda. Which is why I wasn't surprised to find myself in Kampala, Uganda, 18 months later, preparing to meet my young sons. From the moment my husband and I saw their pictures from the orphanage, I was done for. Those were my sons. I would move heaven and earth to bring them home. Hell, I would move to Uganda to bring them home. And that's basically what we did. We landed in Entebbe on August 10, 2011, with our 2 preschool-age daughters in tow. We met our sons that night, and 2 days later, the orphanage director dropped them off for an open-ended visit that lasted 2 months. We attended court for one child and flew through the process until we were just waiting on his final paperwork and passport to bring him home. According to the Ugandan government, 3-year-old John was our son. But 4-year-old Matthew's adoption stalled straight out of the gate. Our lawyer was no help, constantly flying in and out of Kampala. The agency director, who was in the United States, was useless too. We pinned our hopes on the Ugandan orphanage director until she stopped taking our calls. For 2 months, we lived in no man's land. We couldn't get the final paperwork to bring Johnny home. We couldn't get anywhere with bringing home Matthew. And in the meantime, we were living together as a family, bonding in the bizarre ways that happen when someone hands you 2 preschoolers and says, "They're your children, but you can't go home." The kids were all happy, and they still only have good memories of the experience. They remember playing together, chasing chickens around the garden, going on long morning walks, helping the cooks, and playing all day until they were covered in red dirt and fell into bed exhausted. Those 4 little people didn't care that all their worldly possessions fit into gallon-sized Ziploc bags, and we all wore the same 4 sets of clothes. They didn't care that I read the same 3 books to them on repeat, or that we each only had a single pair of shoes. Our children immediately bonded to one another and thrived with the certainty of their siblings. They blossomed in the security of being a pack of 4 kids under 5, all born within 22 months of each other, all smoothly filling in the gaps for the places where the others might be lacking. Matthew can't understand English? That's fine. Natalie will translate for him in the way that they understand. Johnny is scared of the dark? That was okay. We would find him in the morning nestled in next to his sister Marley. The strength of their immediate love and trust in one another was our single driving force. We could stay the course and remain indefinitely in Uganda as long as it took to keep those 4 kids together, because they so clearly needed each other. Everything was fine until October, when the orphanage director finally responded to us. We couldn't have Matthew anymore. She was taking him back. Maybe we could still adopt him if she didn't find someone else. We weren't allowed to visit him, so we could stay in Uganda if we wanted, but we wouldn't be allowed to see him. If we didn't obey, she was going to stop Johnny's paperwork from processing, and then he would be stranded too. She held such power, all of it actually, and she could use it to create or destroy families. And for some reason that I don't understand, she chose to destroy us. Every day for a week, she called with the same threat of showing up that afternoon to take away our son. And every day we packed up Matthew's things and prayed that she wouldn't actually come. Every day she would fail to show, and we would tuck him into bed with his siblings and thank God that he was still with us. And then our luck ran out. She showed up, Johnny's passport in hand, and demanded that Matthew leave with her. The thing I will tell my son is that we had no choice. And it's true, we shouldn't have had him with us anyway. We had no legal standing as his guardians yet. There was absolutely nothing we could do. We had tried contacting lawyers and judges and begging for mercy, but the fact was that she was his guardian and we were not. We were strangers in their eyes, and we were completely powerless. The thing I will not tell my son is that I have never in my life hated another person with quite as much fierce, burning, deep passion as I did her. She took my son out of my arms as he stared at me, blank-faced and stoic. He looked like, I knew it was all too good to be true anyway. I wanted him to cry out. I wanted him to cry for me, to reach for me, to call out my mama, like he had been doing for the previous weeks with a mix of awe and joy, like he couldn't believe he finally had a mama all his own. I stood with tears rolling down my cheeks while my brave, heartbroken son stared at me completely blank. And they drove away while I died inside, certain I would never again see my 4-year-old boy with the sweetest left cheek dimple and a goofy sense of humor. This boy who had just been a stranger, but now felt as essential as oxygen. My son who was my sunshine. I was certain I would never recover. For over 2 months, we had been the happiest of families despite our circumstances. He called me Mama. We had dinners together, held hands when we went on walks, snuggled together, and every night I tucked him into bed. In the span of a lifetime, it was a blip, but it was all we had, and it was ours. We had belonged to one another. Those 4 kids belonged together, but now it had been taken away. If someone else had wanted Matthew as their son, someone who had more of a claim than we did, we would have been thrilled for him. We would have supported that. But there was no family coming forward for him. He had no one in his life but us. Uganda is a beautiful place, but they have children's prisons where they round up unwanted kids and lock them away. Our son, our beloved, beautiful little boy, could end up in one of those places simply because no one would help us. We heard again and again, "I'm so sorry, we wish we could help." It came from lawyers and judges, social workers, orphanages, and agency directors. Over and over and over, the same thing. They pitied us, but they couldn't help. So we flew home with one child and left the other behind. For 6 months, we heard nothing but hoped that something would change. Then, out of nowhere, we got an email from our lawyer saying simply, "Be here for court March 5." Only my husband would go, and he booked tickets for a few weeks prior to the court date. It took over 12 more weeks of fighting with the orphanage director, who refused to help, even though she held the only power to get the documents and passport needed, before my husband and son would finally be on a plane home. And just like that magical email that came from nowhere, they would go from stranded with no end in sight to on a plane within 48 hours. Most adoptive parents I know can spout off endless amounts of information about the effects of trauma on their children. I could even use it to explain why my son was brave while I felt like I had died. But no one talks about the trauma on adoptive parents. I cried myself to sleep staring at a picture of my 4 babies together every night for months on end. I thought if he ever came home, it would be a miracle and the ache would vanish. But my hurt didn't leave when Matthew finally came to us. 2 years later, and I'm still waiting for the effects of losing my son for 6 months to fade. Even today, I still sometimes fall asleep to the memory of holding him tightly and whispering over and over, "I love you, I love you, I am coming back for you. We are a family and I love you." When Matthew is older and asks us why we have to leave behind, I will have no answers for him. I can only say that it's a miracle that we are together as a family. And no matter how your kids come to you, even against all the odds, life is full of miracles, and I am certain that I will never take our miracle for granted.